Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're going to Hollywood, but we're not doing the whole like red carpet thing.
Right.
We're going behind the scenes of this whole Francis Ford Coppola thing, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of intrigue with this new movie,
A
Megalopolis.
lot of layers.
Yeah, and you might have seen some headlines. I don't know, Coppola kissing on set, a whole kerfuffle.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot of attention.
We're going deeper than that,
Much deeper.
deeper than even Variety, and actually,
Well, that he's suing Variety.
yeah, which we'll get into.
Yeah, there's that.
So we're going beyond all that.
And what's really fascinating about this deep dive is that we're not just dealing with, he said, she said. We actually have a Daily Beast exclusive with firsthand allegations.
Yeah, and not just from anybody. This is Benjamin Cawood, who is the child labor coordinator on set.
Exactly. So someone who's, whose job it is to make sure that the youngest people on set are safe.
Right. And that's where things get really interesting because his account brings in a whole other layer to these allegations, going beyond just, the vibe Coppola was going for.
Exactly.
Okay, so for those who haven't been, glued to this whole saga, Coppola was filming this big New Year's Eve scene for Megalopolis, and he decides to get into the spirit by, well, kissing some of the extras.
Yeah, and you have to remember, too, like, things on a film set, sometimes those social norms are a little different.
Yeah.
So context is always important. Like, what might seem out of place in everyday life, maybe there's an explanation of, oh, it's just part of this creative process.
Sure.
But it's Cawood's account that adds this whole other layer.
Yeah, and that's where it gets weird. He claims that Coppola was, and I'm going to use his words here, leering at a 13-year-old extra.
Yeah.
And just so everyone's clear, leering, like you're staring at someone in a way that shows like an inappropriate interest in them.
Yeah, and creepy, like a creepy way.
Yes, thank you.
And Cawood goes on to describe how Coppola was, like, complimenting this girl's looks. He even compared her to a bird, which is just, like, such a weird detail.
It's so specific.
It's so specific, and it just makes the whole thing even more unsettling.
It's not your average, like, hey, good work on set today.
Right, exactly.
And it gets weirder. Coppola then asked this girl her age right there on the spot.
Yeah, and this is where that power dynamic that you were talking about earlier really comes into play. I mean, you've got this young girl, probably a little starstruck, to be on set with Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh, for sure.
And to feel like you can speak up and say, hey, that's not cool, like...
Right, to someone with that much power.
Exactly.
And then it gets worse. Cawood says that Coppola went over and kissed the girl on the cheek right after kissing all those adults.
Wow.
And this is where things get a little, I don't know, murky, because Cawood himself says that it wasn't overtly sexual. But he said something felt off enough to report it. He said the girl looked kind of shocked, looked down.
Yeah, I mean, put yourself in that girl's shoes for a second. Like, maybe this is one of the first times someone outside her family has ever kissed her.
Right.
And it happens on a film set with the director, and everyone's acting like it's no big deal.
Ugh, it's giving me serious ick vibes. So what does Cawood do? He goes straight to the girl's mother, right?
He does, yeah. And this is where it gets even more complicated. Because, according to Cawood, when he told the mother what he saw, her response was basically just, yeah, my daughter told me.
Hold on. So the mom knew and wasn't fazed by this.
It's strange.
What was going through her mind? Was she worried that making a fuss would hurt her daughter's chances in Hollywood?
It's certainly possible.
Right?
And it just goes to show that it's rarely black and white in these situations.
Yeah.
It forces you to think about the difficult positions people are put in, especially with someone as powerful as Coppola.
Yeah, talk about a rock in a hard place. But Cawood, he didn't stop there. He actually went and filed a formal complaint that same day with On Location Education, OLE.
OLE, right.
They were his employer.
And that's huge. It shows he wasn't just, gossiping. He felt strongly enough about it to put it in writing.
Oh, yeah. And we actually have a copy of this email.
Oh, wow.
It's eye-opening. He even acknowledges in the email that it might not be obvious sexual harassment, but the whole interaction felt wrong. He specifically points out that Coppola should have known this girl was underage.
And this is where I think it's so important to remember that harmful behavior doesn't always fit neatly into a legal box,
Right.
Like Coppola clearly sensed that something was off. He felt compelled to report it, even if he couldn't perfectly define why.
Exactly. So what happens after he hits send on this email? Does OLE come down on Coppola? Spoiler. No.
No, not really, no.
Their response was basically, we'll speak to HR about the proper way to handle this. And according to Cawood, nothing ever came of it.
Wow. It makes you wonder if they were really trying to address the issue or just protect themselves.
Yeah, it's the classic non-answer answer, like just brush it under the rug. So here's Cawood, feeling like his concerns are dismissed, and he's sitting on this experience. Months later, bam, this kissing incident makes headlines.
Yeah.
And this is where Coppola's executive producer, Dimitri, comes in. And remember, this statement's coming after Cawood filed his complaint. But Dimitri publicly says that he was never aware of any complaints of harassment or ill behavior regarding Coppola during this whole project. So either someone's not being truthful here, or there's a major lack of communication within Coppola's team. Either way, it doesn't really give off an air of transparency and accountability.
No, not at all.
And then, to make matters worse, Coppola and his team come out swinging, deny any wrongdoing, and they even go as far as suing Variety, like we said, for a whole bunch of money.
And that's where we have to acknowledge that there are multiple sides to every story. So while Cawood's account raises these very valid concerns, we also have to remember that Coppola is strongly denying them. And ultimately, it's the legal process that will have to determine what happens. Right, absolutely. But even with that in mind, I think this situation has brought some bigger issues to light, especially when you consider the power dynamics that we've talked about. So we're back. And I don't know, but this whole Coppola situation, it's got me like, what? Murky waters, for sure.
It's messy, yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the whole, well, he said this and he said that, but I kind of want to pull back a little.
Right.
Look at the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
This isn't just about, one incident on one film set, right? This Cawood, his story.
Yeah.
It brings up, like, a bigger issue.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
You see this in Hollywood, and honestly, you see this in a lot of industries.
Totally.
These power dynamics and how, sometimes people who have power, they misuse it.
Right.
And then it makes it really hard for other folks to speak up if they see something's not right.
Absolutely. Yeah, you see this again and again, right? Someone in charge, maybe they do something inappropriate, and everyone else, they don't want to rock the boat.
Right, exactly. Because then you're going to lose your job.
Exactly. You can be blacklisted. Or even if you speak up, no one believes you, especially if you're talking about...
Particularly with someone like Coppola.
Exactly. Like, are you going to believe, this legendary director or this guy who's coordinating the child actors?
Yeah, it's tough, right? And it makes you think about OLE, his employer.
Yeah.
Their response, or lack of response, is really telling.
It is.
Like, what message does that send to their own employees? If you see something,
exactly,
don't say anything.
Yeah, it's very, I don't know, it just looks bad because they're supposed to be looking out for these kids, right? That's their whole job.
Yeah.
But then they're also working for the production company who's paying them.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's a conflict of interest for sure.
Big time, big time. And, we haven't heard from the young actress at the center of this. And, there are a lot of reasons why she might not want to speak out, and we have to respect that.
Of course, of course.
But her silence, it just shows how hard it is to get justice in these situations, especially when it's a minor,
Yeah, who may not fully grasp
the weight of everything.
Exactly, yeah, or even just how to, navigate all of this, make their voices heard.
Yeah, and to be fair, the Daily Beast article, they did mention there was another actress who Coppola kissed on set.
Okay.
But she said she was fine with it, didn't think he was making anyone uncomfortable.
Right, and that's an important point to bring up.
It is.
Just because one person doesn't have a problem with it doesn't mean that, it's okay. Everyone has different boundaries, different comfort levels.
Exactly.
You have to respect that.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to have clear rules on set.
Yes.
It can't just be what one person thinks is okay or not.
Exactly. You need clear procedures for if someone does want to report something, no matter who it is.
Right. What do you do?
Exactly. And just as important, I think, is creating a space where people feel like they can speak up and that someone's going to listen to them.
For sure.
Take action.
Yeah, because in the end,
yeah,
everyone deserves to feel safe on set.
100%. 100%.
No matter who you are, how famous you are,
exactly,
it shouldn't matter.
Everyone.
So we talked about these power dynamics, importance of guidelines, accountability. What do we do with all this?
Where do we go? Right.
Coppola's story is still going, but it started this conversation, and I think we need to keep having it.
We do.
What can we all learn from this? Not just Hollywood, but everywhere.
Absolutely.
We've talked about a lot, right?
Yeah, a lot to unpack.
But I think the big question is, now what? And this isn't just a Coppola thing,
right,
or even Hollywood, right? This is about, every workplace.
Yeah, making every workplace safer, more equitable.
For sure, for sure. And you hit it on the head. This whole thing,
Yeah,
it shows how power can be misused,
absolutely.
how easy it is to silence people. But I also think it's a call to action.
Okay.
We can all do something.
Totally, totally. And I know it feels like overwhelming sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Like, what can I do?
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be this big, grand thing.
Exactly.
It's the small stuff, too.
Couldn't agree more, couldn't agree more. Being aware of those dynamics, even in your own life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you see something, saying something.
Right. Even if it's hard.
Even if it's hard. And believing other people when they speak up.
Yes.
Making it clear that it's safe to come forward.
And if you're the one in charge,
Yeah.
you've got to, use that power for good, right?
100%.
Make everyone feel heard,
Yeah.
respected, safe.
Be the example.
Yeah.
Set that standard.
Exactly, exactly. And it's not, a one-time thing. It's a constant.
I'm going. Yeah.
You always have to be paying attention.
Yep. Keep talking about it, being willing to, shake things up if you need to.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful.
Me too.
Because we are talking about it.
People are speaking out.
Yeah, things are changing.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign. So, I think the big takeaway here,
Yeah.
if your gut's telling you something's wrong,
Listen to it.
listen to it, speak up. I know it's scary,
Yeah.
but your voice matters. It does.
And you don't have to be, in charge to make a difference. Any of us.
Right.
We can all help create that better future.
Be part of the solution, not the problem, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll be back soon with more, food for thought.
Always good to be here.
Until then, stay curious.